Elon Musk, the relentless dreamer who refused to accept impossible. Beginning and background. On June 28, 1971, in the bustling city of Pretoria, South Africa, a child was born who would one day attempt to colonize Mars, revolutionize the automobile industry, and challenge the very boundaries of human possibility. Elon Reeve Musk entered a world of complexity. His father, Errol Musk, was a South African electromechanical engineer, pilot, and sailor, while his mother, May Musk, was a Canadian-born model and dietitian who had moved to South Africa seeking adventure. The Musk household was far from the warm, nurturing environment many children enjoy. Elon's parents divorced when he was just 10 years old, a rupture that would leave deep emotional scars. South Africa in the 1970s and 80s was a nation gripped by apartheid, a system of institutionalized racial segregation that cast a shadow over every aspect of life. Though the Musk family was privileged by the standards of apartheid society, young Elon was developing a consciousness that would later reject the limitations and injustices he witnessed around him. But it wasn't the political climate that defined Elon's early years. It was his profound sense of isolation. He was different, and everyone knew it. Childhood and education. Elon was a peculiar child, brilliant but almost alien in his intensity. While other children played soccer or rugby in the South African sun, Elon disappeared into books. He read voraciously, consuming entire encyclopedia sets, science fiction novels, and technical manuals with an almost frightening hunger for knowledge. By age 10, he had read the entire Encyclopedia Britannica. His mind worked differently. He thought in systems, in possibilities, in futures that didn't yet exist. This difference made him a target. School became a battlefield where Elon faced relentless bullying. He was small for his age, awkward, and lost in thoughts that his peers couldn't understand or appreciate. The bullying wasn't just verbal, it was brutal and physical. One incident left him hospitalized after a group of boys threw him down a flight of stairs and beat him until he lost consciousness. He suffered so severely that he had difficulty breathing properly for years afterward. At home, things weren't much better. Elon chose to live with his father after the divorce, a decision he would later describe as one of his biggest mistakes. The relationship was psychologically difficult, marked by criticism and emotional distance. His father was a complex man, brilliant in his own right, but harsh and often cruel in his judgments. Yet within this crucible of loneliness and pain, something extraordinary was being forged. Elon discovered computers. At age 12, using a Commodore VIC-20, he taught himself programming. Within months, he had created a video game called Blastar, which he sold to a computer magazine for $500. While other kids saw games as entertainment, Elon saw code as a language of creation, a way to build worlds that didn't exist before you imagined them. Education in South Africa felt constraining to young Elon. He dreamed of America, the land where innovation wasn't just accepted, but celebrated, where companies like Apple and NASA were pushing the boundaries of what technology could achieve. At 17, driven by this vision and wanting to avoid mandatory service in the South African military during apartheid, Elon made a bold move. He obtained Canadian citizenship through his mother's lineage and left South Africa, carrying little more than determination and an unshakable belief that he was meant for something greater. First struggles and failures. Arriving in Canada in 1989 with virtually no money and no clear plan, Elon experienced what it meant to truly struggle. He worked odd jobs, cleaning out boiler rooms, cutting logs, shoveling grain bins, anything to survive while he figured out his next move. He enrolled at Queen's University in Ontario, but these were lonely, difficult years. He lived frugally, sometimes surviving on $1 a day, buying food in bulk, hot dogs and oranges, to stretch his meager funds. After 2 years, Elon transferred to Pennsylvania University, where he pursued dual bachelor's degrees in economics and physics. Even here, he was already thinking entrepreneurially. He and a roommate rented a large house and turned it into an unofficial nightclub on weekends to help pay rent. While he was academically successful, graduating with his degrees, Elon felt the weight of societal expectations pressing down on him. He was accepted to Stanford for a PhD in energy physics, a prestigious path that would have led to a comfortable academic career. For exactly 2 days, Elon attended Stanford. Then he dropped out. It was 1995, and the internet was beginning to explode. Elon saw what others couldn't see yet, that this technology would fundamentally transform civilization. Staying in academia felt like watching the future from the sidelines. But dropping out meant facing brutal uncertainty. Elon and his brother, Kimball, founded their first company, Zip2, which provided online city guides and maps for newspapers. It was the mid-90s, and convincing newspapers to adopt internet technology was like pulling teeth. Many executives didn't even have email addresses. The brothers worked out of a small office, sleeping on the floor, showering at the YMCA, and subsisting on cheap takeout. Elon coded the website by day and tested it by night, his body running on pure determination and caffeine. Investors were skeptical. Banks wouldn't give them loans. The stress was crushing. Here was Elon, a foreigner in America with no safety net, trying to build something in an industry so new that most people didn't understand it. Rejection after rejection piled up. Many would have given up, returned to the security of a conventional career path. But Elon had learned something fundamental during those years of childhood isolation and bullying. He could endure pain that would break others. Motivation and turning point. The turning point came when Zip2 finally secured venture capital funding, but it came with a bitter pill. The investors didn't believe Elon was experienced enough to be CEO of his own company. They installed a more seasoned executive to run the operation. For Elon, who had poured everything into this venture, it was a devastating blow to his pride and vision. Yet this setback taught him a crucial lesson about power, equity, and control, lessons that would shape every future decision he made. Rather than quit or fight a losing battle, Elon redirected his energy into making Zip2 succeed, even if he couldn't lead it the way he wanted. He worked harder than anyone else in the company, coding through nights, solving problems others couldn't crack. In 1999, Compaq acquired Zip2 for $307 million. Elon's share was $22 million. At 27 years old, the boy who had cleaned boiler rooms just years earlier was now a multi-millionaire. But while others might have retired or relaxed, Elon saw this only as fuel for the next mission. With most of his newfound wealth, he immediately co-founded X.com, an online financial services and payment company. The vision was audacious, to create a one-stop everything store for financial needs. The company merged with Confinity, which had developed a money transfer service called PayPal. The merger was rocky, marked by internal power struggles and competing visions. Once again, Elon found himself ousted as CEO, this time in a boardroom coup while he was on his delayed honeymoon. The betrayal stung, but he remained the largest shareholder. When eBay acquired PayPal in 2002 for $1.5 billion, Elon walked away with $165 million after taxes. Here was the real turning point, not in wealth, but in purpose. Elon didn't become an investor sitting on the sidelines. He didn't buy yachts or mansions as his primary focus. Instead, standing at the edge of 30 years old with more money than he'd ever imagined, Elon asked himself a question that would define the rest of his life. What are the problems that most need to be solved to ensure humanity has a positive future? His answer would shock everyone who knew him. Start of success. In 2002, with $100 million of his own money, Elon founded Space Exploration Technologies Corporation, SpaceX. The goal was nothing short of revolutionary: to reduce space transportation costs and ultimately make human life multiplanetary by colonizing Mars. The entire aerospace industry laughed. Experts pointed out that only nations, not private companies, had successfully launched orbital rockets. They cited the graveyard of failed private space ventures. Elon's heroes, legendary aerospace engineers, told him he was wasting his money and would fail. The chances of success by any rational calculation were minuscule. Elon studied physics and engineering texts with obsessive intensity. He taught himself rocket science, breaking down a rocket to its fundamental physics and material costs. He realized the actual materials to build a rocket cost only about 2% of the typical rocket price. The rest was inefficiency. But Elon didn't stop. He founded or co-founded additional companies addressing what he saw as civilizational challenges. Neuralink, developing brain-computer interfaces to help humanity keep pace with artificial intelligence. The Boring Company, addressing traffic congestion through tunnel networks. And he's been deeply involved in artificial intelligence development, constantly warning about its risks while working to ensure it develops safely. In 2022, Elon acquired Twitter, later rebranding it as X, driven by concerns about free speech and the platform's role in public discourse. Another controversial move that generated intense criticism, but reflected his willingness to tackle problems he considered important, regardless of public opinion or financial risk. Lessons and inspiration. Elon Musk's journey offers profound lessons that transcend industries or technologies. First is the power of first principles thinking, breaking down complex problems to their fundamental truths, and building up from there rather than accepting conventional wisdom. When everyone said private space travel was impossible, Elon asked, "What does a rocket actually cost at the level of raw materials?" This approach challenges us to question assumptions in every area of our lives. Second is the willingness to endure criticism and skepticism. Throughout his journey, Elon faced relentless mockery from bullies in his childhood, from aerospace experts, from automotive industry veterans, from Wall Street analysts, and from media critics. He developed a psychological resilience that allowed him to continue when rational people would have quit. This wasn't recklessness, it was conviction backed by deep understanding and willingness to bear personal cost for long-term vision. Third is the idea of mission over comfort. Elon could have retired comfortably after PayPal. Instead, he risked everything multiple times for missions he believed mattered to humanity's future. He's often said he didn't expect SpaceX or Tesla to succeed, he just thought they needed to exist and be attempted. This teaches us that impact often requires accepting the possibility of failure while trying anyway. Fourth is the integration of learning and doing. Elon didn't have a formal aerospace degree when he founded SpaceX, but he read textbooks, consulted experts, and learned relentlessly. He showed that with enough determination, you can acquire the knowledge needed to enter and transform almost any field. Finally, there's the lesson of thinking in timescales longer than quarterly earnings or annual reviews. Elon thinks in decades and centuries about where humanity needs to be and working backward to what must happen now. This long-term thinking allows for extraordinary patience with short-term setbacks. Today, Elon Musk has become one of the most influential and controversial figures on Earth. His companies employ hundreds of thousands of people and are valued at hundreds of billions of dollars. But the financial success is almost secondary to the impact. He's fundamentally changed the trajectory of multiple industries, from automotive to aerospace to renewable energy. Yet he remains deeply human, flawed, sometimes reckless in his communication, controversial in his opinions, and willing to make mistakes publicly. He works brutal hours, faces immense stress, and deals with public scrutiny that would crush most people. For anyone listening to this story, whether you're struggling in school, facing career setbacks, nursing a business idea everyone says is crazy, or simply wondering if your dreams are too big, Remember the boy in South Africa who was beaten and bullied, who arrived in North America with nothing, who slept on office floors, and who was told hundreds of times that his dreams were impossible. Elon Musk's journey teaches us that the impossible is often just the untried, that the criticism of crowds means nothing compared to the conviction of understanding, that failure is data, not destiny, and that the biggest limitations we face are usually the ones we accept rather than challenge. Your background doesn't determine your future. Your early failures don't define your potential. The skepticism of others doesn't diminish the validity of your vision. What matters is whether you're willing to learn relentlessly, work harder than those around you, endure criticism and setbacks, and keep moving forward when every rational signal says to quit. The future belongs not to those who wait for permission or perfect conditions, but to those who build it, one impossible dream at a time.